Bucknutters, welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Friday, September 7th, 2018. I am Dave Biddle. Very happy to be joined by Jonah Booker. JBook, Rutgers is coming to town tomorrow. Big Ten opener for both squads, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Game will be televised by Big Ten Network. How do you see this one playing out tomorrow, JBook?
I think this is going to be an Ohio State rout here. Rutgers, they just don't have the horses to match up with the Buckeyes. Right now, the way this offense is humming along, is pick your poison. If somebody wants to scheme to take out one player, there's another 8 or 9 other guys who has the potential to take over a football game. So I think this is going to be a situation as long as Ohio State can maintain their gap integrity on defense and don't give up the big plays and just protect the football, convert on 3rd and long. I think Ohio State should run away with this game. I know the spread is similar to last week. You're looking at 34, 35 points depending on which site you're looking at, and I think Ohio State's going to be able to cover that.
We'll get to some of the problems with this team in a minute after 1 week, if we can even call them problems. But I want to talk about Dwayne Haskins. He, to me, is the story. I mean, he is story 1, 2, and 3, and through 99. He's just. I don't think you can overstate this. Just like how good he looked. I know it was one game, but it was everything else we knew coming into the game. He just reaffirmed that. If you're a Buckeye fan out there and you're uber excited about Dwayne Haskins, you absolutely should be.
I agree. It was remarkable the way he looked, and some people will be critical and say, oh, he did it against Oregon State. But if you really paid attention to what he was doing, it was remarkable. I mean, the ball was coming out of his hands on time. The wide receivers, and we talked about this all spring and leading up to the season. With Haskins, we thought that he's going to have the potential to break Joe Germain's single-season passing yards record. And the thing that you're going to get is because his accuracy and his ability to get the ball out in a hurry is going to give the wide receivers a tremendous opportunity to catch that football as soon as they're coming out of their breaks in stride. And you saw that with the lone Terry McLaurin touchdown. And that's the one thing that a lot of Ohio State fans thought they were going to get from Haskins. Obviously, in the Michigan game, they simplified it with him being thrown into action, but with him taking the reins all through camp, being able to gel with his skill position players, you're seeing a guy who has thrust himself into the national spotlight. The stage is going to, the lights are going to get even brighter for him if he can perform to that level against TCU, because at that point, if he does it against TCU with the world watching, he's going to have a tremendous opportunity to be in New York as a Heisman finalist.
Obviously, Jordan Fuller missed last week's game. Hopefully he'll be able to play tomorrow. If not, I'm sure he'll be back for the TCU game. But just what are your overall thoughts about the safeties right now?
I think they really need Fuller back. I would love to see him back for the Rutgers game, at least playing sparingly to get to knock some of the rust off before the TCU game, because they're really going to need him for that game. Obviously, the coaches are not very high on the safety position right now, because I know there was news leaking out that Shaun Wade's going to be moving over and playing some of the safety. I didn't like what I saw out of Jason Wynn. I just don't think the guy has that foot speed to be put back there as the last safety valve. Too many times he was caught out of position, and he wasn't able to really be that guy who's going to keep the band from playing the school's fight zone when something broke. Isaiah Pryor, I thought he played pretty well there. There's a significant, to me, a significant talent difference between Wentz and Pryor. So the key is can they get Shaun Wade up to speed in a hurry? Obviously, they're thrusting him in the spotlight because they feel like they need some additional help back there, and I think getting Jordan Fuller back is going to be a huge boost to that back end.
And same deal, linebackers. I thought Malik Harrison and Pete Werner especially, they flashed. They had their share of mistakes, but I thought those guys played pretty well overall. Middle linebacker, I did not think Baron Browning played well. Tough Borland, who knows when he's going to be 100%, but at least he's out there doing what he can. Just your overall thoughts on the linebackers, JBook.
Yeah, I thought the outside guys played really well. I know Greg Schiano had mentioned this week that he thought Pete Werner had played outstanding, and he really did a bang-up job in there. Baron Browning, we need more from him at that Mike position if he's going to stay there. I know Tough Borland's working himself back. I didn't expect to even have Borland playing this season, let alone being out there week one. How effective he's going to be coming down the stretch here as the season gets along, that's to be determined. But overall, if Baron Browning's going to be out there, he has to play better. There was plenty of times where the guy was completely out of place, and he self-purposely took himself out of position on a lot of those big plays. So it's going to be imperative that he elevates his game to another level. If Werner and Harrison continues to flash, that's going to be a great sign for that unit. They just need to get that Mike position solidified and playing at a higher level.
The offensive line was the other big question mark for me entering the season. I wasn't worried about safety, even though they looked terrible in the opener because of Jordan Fuller, and I figured they could find one other safety that'll be solid, and I still feel that way. Linebacker was a concern, and offensive line was a major concern. And, against the Beavers, the offensive line looked great, but that might be one of the weakest, if not the weakest, defensive line they face. So my question to you, sir, is the offensive line all good, or are we too quick to anoint them after playing against a porous D-line like Oregon State's?
Yeah, we talked about the offensive line last week on here, and I was saying I was pretty bullish on it. I thought this offensive line had the opportunity to be very special. It's a massive offensive line, and the thing that you really wanted to see from them is how they got after it down there. Obviously, the coaches, they wanted Jordan over the center and Pridgeon at left guard because that felt like that gave them the best opportunity to get a little nastier down there. And we saw it. I thought Malcolm Pridgeon had an outstanding game. He really set the tone as far as being that junkyard dog that you want to have on the offensive line. And Michael Jordan, they played extremely well. And the thing is you can only play your game against who is in front of you. Yes, Oregon State may not be very good, but they did what they're supposed to do, and that was to go out and kick some butt. Those guys got down and dirty. They were opening up Mack truck lanes for the running backs there. And if they continue to do that, then they have the potential to be very special. I personally think this is the best offensive line in the Big Ten after watching a lot of the other teams in the conference play this week. I know a lot of people were high on Michigan State and Penn State, Michigan or whatnot, but those guys, they look soft up front to me. And with this offensive line, the main thing is just gelling. I know there were a couple instances where communication got mixed up on some stunts and twists that you saw from Oregon State, but the quarterback, he was pretty much kept clean when it comes to passing downs. And like I said, the running backs, they were running, getting 7, 8, 9, 10 home run plays every time they touched the football. It should be the same situation with Rutgers. If they can go into TCU with a little swag to them and feeling pretty confident and get down there in Dallas and start mauling a much smaller defensive line, Big 12 defensive line, then I think the sky is the limit for that unit.
Great insights, as always, from Jonah Booker. Thank you very much, JBook. You can catch him on Twitter, of course, at JBook37. You can catch him on Bucknuts, of course. His column is Outside Columbus. He's all over the front row message board, too. You can shoot him a PM if you want to and tell him how much you appreciate him. People have asked, what's funny, JBook, people have said, like, comments, I'm sure you've read this, like, you guys should make JBook like a guest every Friday. And I'm like, we are. He is. It's been this way for like 2 years. Have you seen that? People are like, you should have JBook on every week. You should be a guest every week. It's like, we've done that.
Yeah, it's hilarious. I think the same thing to myself. Like, hey, We're on every Friday. Just make sure you're tuning in, and you can catch us every Friday.
That's right. So thanks again to JBook, and thanks to all the listeners out there for tuning in to the show. Enjoy the game tomorrow. I hope you have a great day and a great weekend. Let's hear that Buckeye swag, best damn band in the land.